Failure is a word most of us spend our lives running away from, as if it is a stain on our identity. We fear it, we hide it, and sometimes we even bury it deep within ourselves, pretending it never happened. But what we don't realize is that failure is not the enemy. It is not the thief of confidence, it is the birthplace of it. You see, the strongest foundations are not laid in moments of triumph, but in moments when life brings us to our knees. Confidence is not forged in the absence of mistakes. It is born in the fire of our own brokenness. Think about it. When you succeed without effort, you celebrate, but you don't really grow. When everything goes according to plan, you smile, but you don't truly transform. Growth, resilience, and self-belief are not built in easy seasons. They are sculpted in the storm, in the nights when you question yourself, and in the mornings when you rise despite the heaviness of doubt. Every scar on your soul is proof that you endured. Every fragment of failure is evidence that you tried. And if you tried, then you are already ahead of those who never dared. The tragedy is not in falling. The tragedy is in believing that falling defines you. But here's the truth. Failure is not a full stop. It is a comma. It pauses your story, but it doesn't end it. It redirects you, reshapes you, and most importantly, it rebuilds you. To embrace the fragments of failure is to understand that the cracks in your journey are not weaknesses. They are openings through which light enters your life. Philosophically, failure is one of the greatest equalizers. It strips away illusions and forces us to confront ourselves in our most vulnerable state. Psychologically, it humbles us, reminding us that confidence is not arrogance. It is not a mask we wear for the world. It is the quiet courage to keep moving forward even when no one is clapping for us. Failure makes you human, and in that humanity, you find the raw material to rebuild trust in yourself. When you begin to embrace failure instead of hiding from it, something shifts within you. You no longer see yourself as broken, you see yourself as unfinished. And there is beauty in being unfinished, because it means there is still room to grow, still a chance to rewrite, still an opportunity to become more. Confidence begins to return the moment you stop asking asterisk, why did this happen to me? Asterisk, and start asking asterisk, what is this teaching me? Asterisk, take a moment and reflect on your own journey. The times you stumbled, the times you fell short, aren't those the very moments that eventually gave you wisdom, empathy, and depth? The irony is that the very things we try to hide are the very things that connect us most deeply with others. Failure doesn't isolate you, it unites you. Because everyone has fallen, but not everyone has learned to rise. So let the fragments of your failures become the mosaic of your strength. Piece them together, not with shame, but with pride. Because it is in those pieces that your authenticity shines the brightest. The world doesn't need perfect people. It needs real people, people who have known defeat, people who have felt broken, yet people who stand tall with the courage to try again. And if you remember nothing else from this moment, remember this. Failure is not the end of confidence. It is the beginning of it. Each time you fall, you are simply being given another chance to rise stronger, wiser, and more certain of who you are. After you learn to embrace failure as a stepping stone, the next challenge is learning to silence the noise that surrounds you. Because often, it's not the fall itself that crushes your confidence, but the voices that echo around you afterward. The voices that say you're not good enough, that remind you of every mistake you've ever made, that whisper in the quiet moments that you don't deserve to rise again. These voices of doubt can be louder than any failure, because they don't just question what you did, they question who you are. And the most dangerous part, sometimes these voices don't even come from the outside. They live inside our own heads. They are the voices we have absorbed from childhood, from society, from comparisons, from people who projected their fears onto us. Over time, we internalize them so deeply that we mistake them for truth. But let me tell you this with certainty, Doubt is not truth. It is an echo. It is a reflection of someone else's limitation, not your potential. Psychologists call this the internal critic, and it has a way of sounding convincing. It uses the language of reason, but its purpose is sabotage. And if you don't recognize it, you will live your life under its command, shrinking yourself, apologizing for existing, doubting every decision you make. The tragedy is that many people never question these voices, they just accept them as reality. But confidence begins to rebuild the moment you draw a line and say, "This voice is not mine. This fear is not mine. This limitation is not mine." Imagine this for a moment. If you spent as much time listening to your own inner wisdom as you do to the judgments of others, how different would your life be? You see, your inner voice, your true voice, is never harsh, never demeaning, never cruel. It may be firm, it may challenge you, but it always speaks from a place of growth and possibility. That is the voice you need to amplify. That is the voice you need to trust. But how do you detach from doubt when it feels like it's everywhere? The answer is not to fight the voices. Fighting them only makes them louder. The answer is to create stillness. To pause, to learn to observe the noise without attaching yourself to it. It's like sitting by a busy road. You can hear the cars passing by, but you don't have to chase each one. In the same way, you can hear the doubts, but you don't have to believe them. You simply let them pass. This takes practice, because silence can feel uncomfortable when you're used to being surrounded by noise. But in that silence, you rediscover your center. You learn to tell the difference between fear and intuition, between doubt and truth. And when that clarity comes, you realize something profound. The world does not get to decide your worth. The world does not define your potential, only you do. So detach from the voices of doubt, because they were never yours to carry. Detach from the weight of judgment, because it was never your responsibility to please everyone. And most of all, detach from the belief that you must earn permission to trust yourself. Confidence is not granted to you by others. It is reclaimed by you, within you. And if you take only one truth with you today, let it be this: the voices of doubt will always be there, but they don't own the microphone unless you hand it to them. Keep the microphone of your life in your own hands, and let your inner voice be the loudest sound you hear. Once you've embraced the lessons hidden in failure and learned to quiet the voices of doubt, the question becomes, how do you begin to rebuild trust in yourself? Because confidence doesn't return in one giant leap. It doesn't arrive overnight like a flood washing away years of uncertainty. No, it returns gently, almost quietly, through the small promises you keep to yourself, through the little victories that may seem insignificant to the world, but are monumental to your own heart. Too often, we dismiss the small steps because they don't look like success. We say to ourselves, "It's not enough. I should be doing more. Others are already ahead of me." And in doing so, we rob ourselves of the chance to feel progress. But the truth is, confidence is not built in the extraordinary moments of life. It is built in the ordinary ones, the moments when you decide to try again, to show up, to follow through. Every small victory is like a seed, and when you nurture those seeds, you grow an entire garden of self-belief. Think about it. When a child takes their first step, do we criticize them for not running? Of course not. We celebrate it as a miracle. Yet when it comes to ourselves, we demand perfection immediately. We expect to leap without learning how to walk again. This is why so many people never rebuild confidence. They keep waiting for a grand moment of transformation, when in reality, transformation is already happening in the small steps they overlook. Psychologically, these small victories matter more than we realize. They train the brain to recognize progress. Each time you accomplish even the tiniest goal, your mind records it as evidence. I can trust myself. I am capable. I follow through. Over time, this evidence becomes the foundation of confidence, and the stronger that foundation becomes, the easier it is to take on bigger challenges. Philosophically, it reminds us that life itself is not one big achievement, but a collection of small, seemingly ordinary moments that shape who we become. The climb to the top of the mountain is not made of one step. It is made of thousands, and every single one counts. To celebrate small victories is to respect the journey as much as the destination. But here's the key: you must allow yourself to feel proud, even when the world doesn't notice. You must clap for yourself in the silence, because waiting for applause from others will always leave you empty. True confidence is built not when others recognize your growth, but when you recognize it yourself. That quiet acknowledgement, "I did it, no matter how small," is a radical act of self-love, so start noticing. Notice the day you got out of bed, even when you didn't feel like it. Notice the moment you spoke up when you used to stay silent. Notice the hours you invested in learning something new, even if no one else saw it. These are not small things. These are milestones. They are proof that you are rebuilding, that you are becoming stronger, step by step. Confidence is not the loud, dramatic moment of achievement. It is the quiet consistency of showing up for yourself. It is the courage to honor progress without comparison, the wisdom to see significance where others see nothing, and the patience to let each small victory become a building block for something greater. And so, if you take one lesson from this, let it be this: never underestimate the power of a small victory. Because the day you start celebrating them, you stop waiting for confidence to return, and instead you begin creating it. When you begin to celebrate the small victories, something beautiful happens. You start to see glimpses of your own strength again. But to truly rebuild confidence, you must confront one of the deepest challenges of all: the story you tell yourself about your own worth. Because confidence cannot survive in a mind that keeps rehearsing a narrative of inadequacy. Many of us live carrying borrowed stories written by parents, teachers, society, culture, or even strangers who never knew our hearts. Stories that told us who we should be, what success should look like, how we should behave, what we were capable of, and what we were not. And without even realizing it, we live our lives as characters in a script that was never ours to begin with. We measure our worth against expectations that were never designed with our individuality in mind. No wonder we lose confidence, because how can you ever feel at home in a life that was not written by you? Psychologically, this is the root of much of our self-doubt. We internalize definitions of success and identity that clash with our authentic selves. We chase dreams that don't belong to us, then wonder why the victory feels empty. We try to mold ourselves into an image that society praises, but inside we feel disconnected and unseen. Self-trust cannot exist when you are constantly betraying your own truth. This is why rewriting the narrative of self-worth is not just important, it is essential. You must take back the pen and become the author of your own story. And this doesn't mean erasing the past or denying the influences that shaped you. It means reclaiming your right to decide what those experiences mean. The same event that once convinced you that you were not enough can be rewritten as the very moment you discovered your resilience. The same criticism that once silenced you can be rewritten as the fire that gave you your voice. Philosophically, this is about redefining the essence of worth. Worth is not a prize handed to you by society, nor is it a competition you must win. Worth simply is asterisk. It exists because you exist. You are valuable not because of what you produce, not because of how you compare, not because of the validation others give you, but because you are uniquely you with a story no one else could possibly live. When you truly understand this, confidence stops being conditional. It becomes a natural state of being. But rewriting your narrative requires courage. It requires saying, I am no longer going to define myself by what went wrong, by who left me, by the times I failed, or by the labels I was given. It requires the bravery to choose self-acceptance in a world that thrives on comparison. And here's the paradox. The moment you stop trying to prove your worth, you begin to embody it more powerfully than ever before. So ask yourself today, what story am I telling myself about who I am, and is it a story that lifts me or limits me? Because if it is the latter, then you have the power to rewrite it. You can choose a narrative that honors your growth, celebrates your uniqueness, and aligns with your authentic path. Confidence is not about living someone else's script perfectly. It is about standing boldly in your own. And once you do, the world cannot help but see you differently, because you are no longer walking in borrowed shoes. You are walking in your own. And if you carry just one truth from this moment, let it be this: your worth is not a story written by others. It is the story you choose to tell yourself every day. So choose to write it with courage, with compassion, and with truth. When you begin to rewrite the story of your worth, a new kind of energy enters your life. Freedom, but with that freedom also comes fear. Because the moment you decide to live authentically, to walk a path that belongs to you, you will inevitably encounter uncertainty, and fear thrives in uncertainty. It whispers, what if you fail again? What if you're not ready? What if you're not strong enough? Many people stop here. They allow fear to paralyze them. They wait for courage to arrive fully formed, as if one day they will wake up fearless. But let me tell you something important. Fear never disappears. If you are waiting for fear to leave before you take action, you will wait your whole life. Fear is part of being human. It signals that you are stepping into the unknown, and the unknown is where growth lies. Psychologically, fear activates the survival centers of our brain. It wants to keep us safe, to prevent pain, to protect us from risk. But in doing so, it also keeps us small. The key is not to eliminate fear, but to reinterpret it. Fear is not always a warning sign to retreat. Often it is a signal that you are on the edge of something meaningful, that trembling you feel inside when you step out of your comfort zone. That is not weakness. It is the body's way of preparing you for expansion. Philosophically, fear reveals something profound, that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision to move forward despite it. Every great story of transformation is not about people who felt no fear. It is about people who acted anyway. Confidence grows in that exact space, the space where fear exists, but action happens anyway. Think about the moments in your own life when you felt proudest of yourself. Weren't they the very moments you overcame fear? The day you spoke when your voice trembled, the time you took a step even though your legs shook, the moment you faced rejection but still chose to try again. That pride you felt afterward, that was confidence being born, fueled by fear itself. This is why you must learn to transform fear into fuel. When fear says you can't, use it as motivation to prove to yourself that you can. When fear says you're not ready, let it remind you that readiness is not a prerequisite for growth. It is the result of it. When fear says, what if you fail? Answer it with, what if I fly? The same energy that tries to hold you back can become the very energy that propels you forward, if you shift your relationship with it. And here's the truth. Every person you admire has felt fear. The difference is not that they were fearless, but that they refused to let fear be the final decision maker. They turned it into fuel, into courage, into resilience, and so can you. So don't curse fear. Don't see it as your enemy. Thank it because it is a sign that you are alive, that you are reaching for more. that you are daring to step beyond the walls of comfort into the space where real transformation happens. Fear is not the obstacle, it is the invitation, and if you carry one lesson from this, let it be this: fear will always walk beside you, but it doesn't have to lead you. Take it by the hand, thank it for its warning, and then let it watch as you turn it into the fuel that takes you exactly where you were meant to go. When you learn to embrace failure, when you silence the voices of doubt, when you begin to celebrate your victories, rewrite your story, and transform fear into fuel, what you ultimately discover is: this confidence cannot be borrowed, copied, or imitated. It has to be anchored in authenticity, because if the confidence you project is only a performance, it will crumble the moment life shakes you. Real confidence, the kind that endures storms, can only be built on the foundation of who you truly are. We live in a world that constantly pressures us to wear masks, masks of strength, masks of success, masks of perfection. We smile when we're breaking inside, we act certain when we're drowning in doubt. We project happiness even when we are exhausted. And for a while, the world applauds those masks. People admire the surface, but deep down, you know when you're not aligned with yourself. And nothing erodes confidence faster than living in contradiction to your truth. Authenticity, on the other hand, has a quiet power. It doesn't need to be loud. It doesn't need to prove itself. It doesn't seek validation. Authenticity is simply the courage to stand as you are, without apology and without disguise. It's saying, this is my story, these are my scars, this is my truth, and I will no longer shrink myself to make others comfortable. Psychologically, authenticity creates trust first with yourself, and then with the world. When your actions match your values, when your words reflect your true beliefs, you no longer second-guess yourself. You no longer replay conversations in your head wondering, should I have said that? Or did I pretend too much? Confidence flows naturally because you are no longer acting, you are simply being. And when you trust yourself, others begin to trust you too. Philosophically, authenticity is the ultimate liberation. It frees you from the exhausting cycle of comparison, because there is no one else to compete with when you are fully yourself. It frees you from judgment, because you no longer measure your worth by approval. It frees you from fear, because the worst has already happened. You've revealed yourself, and you're still standing. This doesn't mean authenticity is easy. Sometimes it means disappointing others. Sometimes it means walking away from roles you've outgrown. Sometimes it means standing alone. But here's the paradox: when you choose authenticity, you're never truly alone, because you finally have yourself. And that is the companionship that builds unshakable confidence. So ask yourself, are you living as who you are, or as who you think the world wants you to be? Because rebuilding trust in yourself is impossible if you keep abandoning your own truth. The final and deepest step is to return to yourself, to anchor firmly in your authenticity, and to let that be the ground from which your confidence grows. And if you take nothing else from this entire journey, let it be this: confidence is not about becoming someone greater, louder, or stronger. It is about becoming fully yourself. Because once you anchor in authenticity, no one can shake you, no one can define you, and no one can take away the quiet, powerful trust you carry within. So stand as you are, not as the world told you to be, not as fear shaped you to be, but as who you were always meant to be. Because in the end, the most powerful thing you can ever be is yourself.